I first want to commend the king and I want to commend the UK for taking some action. She did fight for this. She fought against a lot of rich and powerful people, including Prince Andrew, and we are so proud of her. Why she took her own life, I don't know.
No more. We are tired of this cover up.
Now, for the king, I think there's more that he could do. He does have the ability to strip him even further of the prince title, which we would call upon.
The news from Buckingham Palace that Prince Andrew is no longer going to use all the titles. He's no longer going to call himself the Duke of York. He will no longer be a knight. Has been significant in terms of the development of this story surrounding Jeffrey Epstein and all the allegations that have been made against Prince Andrew. We spoke to Virginia Giuffre's brother and her sister-in-law. They live in Colorado in the United States, and they gave us their reaction to the developments from Buckingham Palace and also how they're feeling in the days leading up to the publication of their sister's book, which is a posthumous memoir called Nobody's Girl. Sky, Amanda, thank you very much for doing this today. I would imagine that any developments when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein or any developments concerning the allegations around Prince Andrew must be very triggering, because it is a reminder, of course, that your sister is no longer here to see what's happening or what she started.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of mixed emotions for us over the last day as this has kind of developed through. For me, there's a lot of there's a big happy moment for us because she did fight for this. She fought against a lot of rich and powerful people, including Prince Andrew, and most notably, I remember her saying, only one of us is essentially telling the truth, and that person is me. And I think this was a very big vindicating moment for her to show that she was consistently a truth teller. But it is, to your point, very sad for us as well because she's not here. Reality is she should be in this interview with you having this conversation. And so, we do feel this responsibility to pick up her legacy and to keep pushing it forward because it does deserve defense. It does deserve to carry on in a way of pride. And we do feel that as the family. So, it is a very mixed emotion time for us, both here in the United States and in the UK, but we are very proud of the UK government in some ways of stepping forward, at least holding him to some sort of account because it's not something we're doing so much here in the United States.
The decision to no longer use these titles, the Duke of York, and the fact he was a knight as well, a Knight of the Garter, the decision was called voluntary. He decided to relinquish them, but we all think that he was given no option. He was told, if you don't do this, we'll do it for you. It does appear that he was forced into this position and to make the statement that he made on Friday.
I think it is a reflection of how much pressure that survivors have been putting the work that Virginia has done for countless years and her relentlessness to speak the truth. Things are starting to surface here, and I think one of my last interviews that I did with the UK is that the truth has a way of surfacing, and it's been in hiding and it's been in the shadows for far too long. And I think the people are of both of our countries have hit a point of saying no more. We are tired of this cover up. And so I think not just Prince Andrew, but many accomplices, many people who may have participated are starting to really feel the fire underneath them and feel this pressure that things are going to come to surface that they may not want to. Um, and it needs to happen.
Let's talk about the timing, because there was an extract released in one of the British newspapers just a few days ago that your sister had written. And we should be clear, this is now a posthumous memoir.
Mhm.
I mean, I read those passages that they're very it's a difficult read, isn't it? It's very hard to understand what happened and how your sister was able to bravely write those words. Do you think the imminent publication of her book, of her memoir, is the reason why we got to this point where Buckingham Palace said to Prince Andrew, "That's enough. Time's up. We need to do something about this."
I think there's a multitude of things going on. I think A, that just prior to, a lot of news coming out about the memoir of our sister, there was also the email leak of him having communication in 2011 stating things like, we'll play some more soon, we're in this together. And this is after he had made statements in 2018 in his interview, essentially saying, well, I cut off all communication in
Mhm.
2010. And so I think, again, it reinforces my sister as a truth teller, which then falls in line with the memoir coming out
Mhm.
because she does make some pretty serious allegations in there and they are very detailed. It's a very hard read in a lot of ways. I think this has a lot to do with it. I think the memoir is going to be very telling, but it's only the start. There's so
Mhm.
much more that we have to keep fighting for on both sides with the UK and with the US.
Mhm.
We should be clear as far as the British legal system is concerned that Prince Andrew has never been convicted of anything in a court of law, and he continues to strenuously deny all the allegations that your sister made against him. And he did, or was given the money to come to an out of court settlement with Virginia. Is there part of you that wishes this had gone to trial so that more things came out? Do you sometimes wish your sister hadn't settled out of court with Prince Andrew because he did so with no admission of liability?
Mhm. I don't think there should be any regrets for settlements. You have to understand, I think the only way that the survivors were going to get exposure to expose them was these civil lawsuits. Um, so I think that was a huge step, but it was only the beginning, and then it just kind of fell to the wayside. I wish, and what we're hoping for right now, our government has the key to reopen investigations. Our government has the tools to reopen this investigation. And I do believe further investigation needs to happen with Prince Andrew and many others. They have documentation that could lead to those things. So I think the settlements are a small fraction of the justice that these survivors deserve. And, she addresses that in the book too. She talks about the complicated decision to have to go through that and decide, to take a settlement and the backlash that she got for that. But the book is so important because it puts you in the survivor's perspective of how impossible, how difficult this situation is. And so I think, again, we have work to do now. We have work to make sure that those investigations do happen.
Sky, I had a conversation with a very senior member of Buckingham Palace, a senior courtier yesterday, who described the day as being very busy. Clearly, they were having many meetings about what to do. But they said at the end it was a good outcome. In other words, this is what the king wanted. He had, his courtiers had full approval to do whatever was necessary. So, what do you think about the way in which King Charles has acted when it comes to his younger brother, in a way perhaps that the late Queen Elizabeth didn't act when it came to her second son?
I first want to commend the king and I want to commend the UK for taking some action. It is, while it may not be enough in a lot of ways that the survivors view it, it's still a lot more than what we've been given from our own government here, even though
Mm.
we possess the Epstein files, quote unquote. Now, for the king, I think there's more that he could do. I think he could also, for at least from the people that I've discussed it with that are UK correspondents, that he does have the ability to strip him even further of the prince title, which we would call upon. I think we've already taken all these necessary steps. Why not just take it another step further and relinquish him of his prince title as well? Although I do know it's tied to blood. Now, I know that's a strong opinion from somebody from the US, so that's obviously comes, with the UK decision. However, there's more to be done here. I would also call for the king and other world leaders to put more pressure on the US government to release the files. I
Mhm.
know his brother may be implicated in these, and I get that's a big decision, but it's also the right thing to do. It's the
Mm.
right thing to do because the people are asking for it of the UK, of the US. And I think this would actually, it would strengthen our overall democracy together as we work together and give more trust in the system. Because right now I can tell you as a US, somebody that's from the, I don't trust our government. And
Mhm.
I don't know how the UK people feel, but there is this strong distrust between both. And I think it's time that they start taking more action, such as what the UK has already started to do. But there is, as Amanda quoted, there is more to do to
Mm.
this.
When you look back to 5 years ago to that Newsnight interview, which is now so famous, or should I say infamous, it was Queen Elizabeth who said, right, you need to step down as a member of the royal family, you need to stop all your military titles. But he remained a duke and he remained a knight. He could use the words, KG after his name, Knight of the Garter. She could have made these decisions 5 years ago. We've had 5 years of people saying, why is he still the Duke of York? Why is he still a Knight of the Realm? This could have been done 5 years ago. It kind of feels like it's 5 years too late and it's taken a different monarch effectively to do it.
Yeah. I think we feel the same way here. Our government has been silent on the Jeffrey Epstein case for years. There were so many actions that they should have taken. So it's the same concept. It's like this perception of, okay, we're gonna take care of this. And while we're appreciative of that acknowledge when it happened, it just isn't enough for these survivors. They're living with this trauma for the rest of their life. So I think the only way we get these things to happen is using our voice, our voice. It's this pressure that puts them in the corner to say, like, I have to do something about it. It's not avoidable anymore. More and more documentation is coming out because of the pressure that we are putting, because of the survivors coming forward even more now and gathering together and speaking out. It takes the people's voice to make these things happen. And it's exhausting, it's unfair, right? We're putting this burden back again on the survivors. But in order to get true justice, that's where it lands. It really does land in the power of the people and calling on our leaders to do the right thing.
Sky, I spoke to a British legislator, a member of the Parliament yesterday, who said, okay, he's agreed to not use these titles. In fact, in Buckingham Palace speak, it's extant and but in abeyance. In other words, it still exists, he still has them, he just doesn't use them anymore. But this member of Parliament says, well, no, we need a change of the law. We need to actually rip these titles off him, and that can't be done unless they change legislation. Would you urge the British government, of course, the King has no say over what the government does, he's not political, but would you urge lawmakers in the UK to actually change the law to physically take the title off Prince Andrew of Duke of York?
I would urge any government, including the UK government, to take action against anybody that's created, or I'm sorry, has inflicted, I guess would be the right word, inflicted such heinous crimes allegedly on survivors or victims at the time. I believe my sister. I want to be clear. I believe my sister. She was a consistent truth teller, and I think you'll see that through the book and through, the documents that continuously are released here, including the ones that were recently released. So yes, I would call on any government, including our own and the UK government, to take action.
Mm.
No matter of title, no matter of precedence, you should not be above the law just because you have more money and power than other people. We cannot, end with this, we cannot separate, there's two separate laws for two separate people. We have laws for the general public and people, and then we have laws for the rich and powerful. The general people get X, the rich and powerful get a different type of punishment. They should both be equal in the same right. And I think if that's what it takes to get there, yes, pass that piece of legislation, get that through so that you can strip people of their titles if you're unable to do so now.
Mm.
Sky, did you ever have a conversation with your sister about why she chose to name Prince Andrew? Because there are plenty of other people who were alleged to have inflicted abuse on her and others who she didn't name. In fact, in the book I read the other day, that she mentioned that someone who went on to be a leader of a Western country. Why did she decide to, make Prince Andrew someone that she would name publicly when others she
Yeah.
didn't, never did?
I think that's an amazing question. And the truth behind that is that I think she wanted to name every name. I
Mhm.
think Prince Andrew was obviously one of those. There were many people out there that she couldn't name for specific reasons. A lot of them being the threats to her, to myself, to our family, to her kids. Namingly a time where she was in a deposition and somebody pushed a photo across the table at her and basically indicated that if she continued forward, that one, she would either they would cause harm to her, or two, they could sue you into homelessness. And
Mhm.
so, I think there might have been more evidence and more credibility to coming after Prince Andrew. I think that's up to her lawyers to decide as well as they were kind of piecing together the different cases. But I can say confidently that I did have conversations with her, and she did want to go after every single monster that essentially, victimized her, but she was unable to do so, as many
Mhm.
survivors still haven't gotten that justice because, they could be sued into homelessness. They could have threats in their life. So,
I will
But
say,
and you heard Prince Andrew say it himself, that he said, I don't ever recall meeting her. I don't ever recall going to that apartment where the infamous picture of your sister and Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell were. He doesn't remember any of it. He has no
mm,
recollection. He said that quite clearly in 2019. And as you pointed out, but both versions cannot be true.
mhm.
correct.
I will tell you also from a personal conversation that I've had with her about Prince Andrew specifically and why it struck her so much at that time, being 17 years old, you're a teenager. One of the things that she remembered so clearly was that he specifically ended up knowing her age because his daughters were the very same age. So that was one point. The other point that really struck her was that he was a prince. And she was a young girl who had these ideals of what a prince should be, right? You hear this in storybooks of the Prince Charming and all of these things. And it struck her so deeply at 17 years old that, like, for her, the facade of the prince just fell. She expected more of him from this position of power. The other thing that she says, and it's really hard to read, is when you go through this type of trauma, it's really difficult to the way the brain works. You'll sometimes forget dates. You'll forget specific small details, but you will never forget someone abusing you when they are 6 inches from your face. And it makes you feel like this is trauma that I will never forget. And it just only reaffirms, like, we have to believe survivors. We have to believe them.
And it's worth me just pointing out for British law that he's always denied the allegations. He's never been convicted of anything. And when he settled with your sister, there was no admission of guilt or liability. Can I just ask you finally, Sky, just how you kind of feel right now? You miss your sister, I'm sure. She fought as hard as she could, but at some point she decided that she couldn't continue any further. We're talking about this now because of what happened yesterday, but for you guys, for both of you, it's such a emotive and difficult time, knowing that she's just not here to witness any of this.
Yeah, it is surreal for us. It's very surreal to be sitting in this seat here and having a conversation with you and her not doing it herself. She always wanted to protect us from, as the family. I've heard a lot of people ask questions of why didn't the family come forward before? I mean, you got to understand we were 5 years. I'm 5 years younger than my sister, so she always had this protective mentality. I want you to read the book because if you read the book, you'll fully understand. She had this motherly perspective of her. And she always wanted to protect us from this evil and never have to come forward. But in her passing, we felt this I don't know, this need to just defend her legacy, to make
Mhm.
sure that her name is not tarnished, that people are out there to help defend her. Like she protected me and so many others for so long. It's time for us to protect her. It's time for us to give her justice. And I think that's why you see a lot of her survivor sisters coming forward. And so it's a big moment for us. We are so proud of her. Why she took her own life, I don't know. I do know, but I don't. And I think it's time for us to start believing survivors. It's time for us to start giving more to them and stop putting all the pressure on them. It's not always their responsibility to come forward. It's us as people, as brothers and as sisters and as mothers to come forward for them and fight for them. They're taking incredible risk by doing so. And so I do employ the UK government, the US government, the US people, and UK people to come forward, be vocal. The only way we're going to do this is with our voices. And so let's not be quiet. I think one of my favorite quotes from her says, I will never be silenced. I will never back down until justice is served. And I think that is such a powerful statement that we have to continue to let resonate in the survivor community, but even just in the basic principles of life.
Mm.
Cannot be silenced. No change will be made unless we continue this fight forward for them and for Virginia and for so many others out there.
I can see, how difficult and traumatic it is for you to be, retelling her story on her behalf, and we really do appreciate you doing it. Just before we go, tell me about the butterflies that you're wearing. For anyone who doesn't realize why you're wearing them, this is all about her and her transition from being a victim of Jeffrey Epstein to someone who was a now very well-known campaigner for those who survived.
Yeah, I think also, Virginia always loved butterflies. It was one of her favorite things. And when she was starting her nonprofit, they came up with Victims Refuse Silence at first, and now it's SOAR. But from the very beginning, she wanted the symbol to be a butterfly because it was such a perfect representation. The way that it starts as a victim and even as a caterpillar, it may be perceived as ugly and not beautiful, and there's scars. And then there's this space in that cocoon of healing and acknowledgement. And then it turns into power and beauty. And so it's such a beautiful example of a survivor and the journey that they go through. And it's a piece of her every time we wear it. And it's why we wear it every time we come out publicly, because she's with us.
Thank you for explaining that. And of course, as you saw in the statement yesterday, Prince Andrew said again he denies the allegations that have been made against him. But within days, your sister's posthumous memoir, Nobody's Girl, will be out and available for people to read. And we really appreciate the time that you've given us today to talk about her and talk about the book, and also respond to the developments that we had here in the UK from Buckingham Palace in the past day or so. So a thank you from me. Appreciate you doing it, and it's been a pleasure connecting with you, even though you're in Colorado and I'm in London. It's been a pleasure talking to you and connecting with you, and thank you very much indeed.
You as
Thank
well.
you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so
We
much.
appreciate your time.